Brought to you by Let your guests enjoy walking around your house. Italtex is the perfect adhesive for any tile job. Easy to use, versatile, and most importantly, durable enough to handle any tile problem. Italtex tile adhesive. No need to refix.
Are you aware that if you do not get consent from the registered landowner of the land on which you have built your dream house, you can pay an amount up to the tune of 85 million shillings or even go to jail for a period of 4 years? Have you recently checked that land title that you have to find out whether it is lawful? I mean, with the signature of the landowner. If not, take a seat and watch Area Code tonight, and I will tell you a tale of the importance of the landlord's consent. Welcome, my name is Sabrina. So joining us on set today, I'm very pleased to be introducing Kizito Bashir Tutorials, who is the Deputy CEO at Bibanja Landlord. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Welcome back, I must say. It's such a pleasure to have you back here.
My pleasure as well.
So today we're discussing a judgment that was passed by the High Court, where they now require anyone buying or selling a Bibanja to first ask for consent from the landlord. First of all, we need to understand the backstory of where such a judgment is coming from, and also we need to understand what that means.
Thank you, Sabrina. You're going to understand that this is not a new scenario. The Land Act, as amended in 2010, through its sections 35, subsection 1, and then section 34, all the way from subsection 3 to 6, clearly stipulates the requirement that a Bibanja person needs to acquire consent from the landowner. All Bibanja holders must seek consent from the landlord. Now, what this judgment tells is it is a test of the law. And whereas most Ugandans could probably just have heard about this judgment that happened in September, we've actually had several other earlier judgments, all reading and quoting the same law, that it is mandatory that Bibanja owners seeking to sell or part ways with part or whole of their Bibanja must seek consent from the registered owner, who is the minor owner.
Yes.
Now, that section of the law is not just about consent, but stipulates the procedure. Somebody must seek that consent in writing, and then they'll get a response from the landlord. The same law seeks the Bibanja owner to offer the first opportunity to buy that Bibanja if they so wish to sell. And this should be very important to the viewers. The law also quotes sanctions should such a thing happen. If a Bibanja holder sells the Bibanja without getting consent from the landlord, then the following could happen to them. One, upon successful prosecution in court, they could be fined money worth 1,920,000 shillings. Or they could actually face imprisonment for 4 years, or a sanction of both, a fine and imprisonment. Two, they actually lose the Bibanja. The seller and the buyer lose the Bibanja, and the Bibanja reverts to the landlord, the minor owner. So that should have big consequences to anybody that you're seeking to acquire this chibanja. If you don't get consent from the landlord, then other than the fine and imprisonment, it is likely that you will actually even lose the chibanja.
Right.
And as is with this case we're talking about, because they went to court, court has even ordered extra monies to be paid in form of damages of up to 85 million. So you can imagine what that means. It's a full array of sanctions to somebody who has not followed the law.
Right. And you've been mentioning consent. How does one, first of all, what does consent look like? How does one go about getting it? Let's get more into detail with that, because you mentioned writing a letter, but tell us about the procedure of getting that consent.
This consent must first of all be applied for in writing. The chibanja person writes to the landowner, notifying them of their intentions to sell their chibanja, inviting them to buy the chibanja as the first option, and if they can't buy, then they are asking them for consent to sell to the next person. The law gives 6 weeks for the landlord to respond to such a request, and the law envisages 2 positions: that the landlord will accept with conditions, or the landlord may actually refuse. And if the landlord refuses, then again the tenant has recourse to law. They can go to the magistrate's court and then explain the circumstances, and the court can grant this consent. The landlord is not using this land. You're already occupying and using it. So the landlord is simply being given an opportunity to reacquire this land for their own use. But if they can't, then they respond to you in writing that they have offered you this consent. So it is not a very difficult thing. It can be written, can be typed, it can be written in any form, really, for as long as there is evidence that this consent was sought for and that the landlord has responded in equal measure. The birthright granting you this consent to sell to any other person.
So you've mentioned that this judgment was passed in 2010, but reinforced somewhat recently. There's people who have probably been transacting without the consent, or even right now are in the process of transacting. How would you advise those people to proceed? The people who have already transacted in the past, they've already done it, they don't have the consent. The people who are doing it right now or in the process of it, they don't have the consent. How would you advise them to maybe make it right?
In law, there are things we call voidable contracts. They are contracts that people make, and upon application by the person interested, they can choose to make such contracts null and void. Now, such agreements where people have purchased Bibanja without the consent of the landlord, such people are carrying a risk that actually the landlord could wake up today, take them to court, and they could lose their Bibanja. Now, before the landlord does that, they have a choice to actually seek this consent retrospectively. They can actually walk to the landlord, present their sales or purchase agreement, and say, we are seeking for this consent retrospectively so that their purchase is ratified. And this is what I would advise anybody. If you know you've purchased land since 2010 without a written consent of the registered landowner. Now that is different from you having purchased from the previous chibanja owner. The law requires the Milo owner responsible to grant you this consent. So if you're sure you bought from either a Kayungirizi, another chibanja person, a land broker, we have land dealers, land agents, property agents. There's so many of them out there transacting on Milo land, and they're not offering you land titles. They're not passing over Milo interest, but rather they are selling chibanja. All you have is a sales agreement. The safest thing you have to do right now is seek out your landlord, the registered Milo owner, such that they can ratify your transaction. They can offer you this consent in writing. And when they do, then your contract is very valid and it is very lawful.
Land is not merely a commodity for trade. It is the keeper of stories and the wellspring of life. Seasons come and go, and the land will witness them all. Let me go for a commercial break. When I return, is the collateral still valid? This is a question to answer when I return.
Brought to you by Let your guests enjoy walking around your house. Italtex is the perfect adhesive for any tile job. Easy to use, versatile, and most importantly, durable enough to handle any tile problem. Italtex tile adhesive. No need to refix.